A bad artist copies and a good artist steals.
Right. So when I hear that, trying to make the distinction, like a bad artist might just copy your shit and try and replicate it.
Right.
Which we've all seen, and some of you artists have gotten that high form of flattery where motherfuckers will just take your shit
Dave
and
Tevenall
copy
is
it.
like one of the top ones that experiences that.
But most,
and as a
nine
realism
out of
artist, that's what you
yeah.
do.
Yeah.
Right. But 9 out of 10 times when you see someone copy someone else's shit, they didn't even execute it well. Like,
Right.
that's why you can
Exactly.
see those comparisons of like, here's the authentic version and here's the copycat that tried it, and you can
Right.
tell not even fucking close. Right. But then when you say, so if a bad artist copies, and we know usually they're not even good at that, but a good artist steals, that tells me leads more to what I think Josh is, trying to illuminate here, is that you may be influenced by
Right.
people's work, but then you take it upon yourself and make it your own in what you produce.
Right.
It's a lot like music. There are no new chords that have not been discovered. If you take
Great
the neck
example.
of a guitar, there's G, C, and D, B minor, C minor, right? Now you can line up 40 dudes that all can play G, C, and D, but what are they going to do with those chords, right? We could just bring up the Beatles alone and probably point to 1,000 bands that were influenced by the Beatles, but yet, and so even if they stole something that a vibe from Lennon, but then made it their own and called themselves Nirvana, right? Or whatever.
Or
the case
Oasis.
Right. Whatever the case may be. And even in hip hop, I mean, we see the evolution of hip hop, when it began, the whitest white dude today could rap over original hip hop.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But the whitest white dude can't rap over current day hip hop.
Right.
So we do see evolution. But every guy ever interviewed, I was just watching a Lil Wayne interview before we started, and he named off his top 5 favorite MCs of all time. And I'd be shocked that Lil Wayne's number one influence was Missy Elliott.
Really?
Yeah, and that
Interesting.
mind blowing. And yes, he
Yeah.
gave shout out to Jay-Z and Biggie, but his number one influence was always Missy Elliott. And you just never know. And I know, like, I'm one of my number one influences as a tattoo artist is Joshua Carlton.
Stop it.
But to this day, no one's ever looked at one of my pieces and be like, oh, that's Carl. Well, maybe a few people is trying to make me feel good that know me. Like my wife might be like, hey, that looks kind of like Carlton,
Well-
but we know it fucking really don't.
Well,
I definitely
also-
can't copy Carlton, but maybe I could try and steal some of the things he's doing. That's one thing, but for me to actually implement it and execute it, I mean, this man came and tattooed you, and I watched him in the flesh, and tried to, if we want to say copy or steal, the very fucking next day, and I couldn't pull it off, right? And so it's funny to me when dudes are even talking like, oh, he's stealing my work. Because if a dude can steal your work and do it well, God forbid, even better than you, well, fuck, man,
Yeah,
now what?
yeah, Exactly. Yeah.
Well, so Meshcow has got a good example of this. He's always like, people will take, and I know what it is. He'll do a tattoo, and they'll take the picture of the tattoo and then make their stencil from that.
Oh.
That's like copying.
Copying,
Right.
yeah.
Right,
Now,
right.
if they see his work and they're like, that's fucking dope, and they like take a picture of fucking Simon or Garfunkel and then graffiti face the shit out of it and liquefy the eyes and the fucking black drool.
Yeah.
And they fucking do it. That's like stealing.
Right.
Because you can see the influence. Like,
Right.
dude, earlier work of you, it's almost like Brenner did it.
Right.
So you can totally see it. And
Yeah.
it's matured to where you still have that fucking heavy Brenner influence.
Yeah.
But you've also like, you stepped out of fucking, you learned to walk.
Yeah.
And then fucking run, and you kind of found your way.
Right, and that's what I was saying earlier
Yeah.
is like, to me, there's nothing wrong with copying it even exactly in your sketchbook. And that's just for you to like reverse engineer it, right?
Right.
So, you copy it directly so you can kind of say, how was Mishkow thinking when he did this, right? Only to mature. That's a great word for it, as your work goes along. When somebody has an extremely strong style and then you they're really popular, and then you jump on the bandwagon and you're like, I'm going to be the next whoever, right?
Right.
That's like buying the stocks at the top. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, oh,
Right.
Bitcoin is here. You know what I mean? So like you jump on everything. You think you're some kind of an investor, and you're just buying these stocks that you didn't invest when it was low, right? You didn't get it. It's the same idea. You know what I mean? So you want to like invest yourself into it, in an artist that you admire, and then you want to like figure out the best to your ability how it's done, reverse engineer kind of in the sketchbook or on your buddies or tattoo yourself, and then start adding your own thing to it. Because I will there's a small handful of artists that I will really see my hand in. My last apprentice, Michael Asari, we talked about him before. His work looks a lot like you can see that you know, but he's maturing and is starting to evolve into his own thing. So to me, that's when it gets exciting.
Dude, how about your most recent apprentice?
What's that?
Your most recent apprentice, i.e. your wife.
There you go. Yeah, like
her work looks like you're fucking doing it.
Her drawings and everything look extremely, and that's because she's the most dedicated person to me, and she's been around me as I've grown. She's been around me as I've literally like pulled my hair out trying to figure something out. So she's like by osmosis, basically.
Jeez, it's amazing to see, dude.
It's actually amazing. Really exciting because people are like, oh my God, that's her second black and gray tattoo, and it literally looks like you did it.
Right.
But she's kind of been apprenticing for 20 years, like not technically, but really she kind of is, because we're in that relationship. We've talked about this before in other episodes where she does go to the shows with me. She is right there with me. We are a unit, a team, right? So it wasn't like she knows everything. She can build coil machines. Like literally she could cast her own from the metal. Like it's not just putting them together. She could literally cast a coil tattoo machine because she's been around it. So yeah, that's a great example to see my hand in the work. There's a painter named Boris Vallejo. Are you guys familiar with him?
No.
Real awesome painter. And he's got a wife named Julie Bell, and she paints so similar to him that many times she's been accused of him actually doing the paintings, and it's just a marketing gimmick because it's the same type of idea, right? I hope that Nikki goes on eventually to have her own look.
Yeah.
But we like the same things so much that I can see her stuff looking a lot like mine, and we'll just start bouncing off of each other. Like, to me, what a dream come true one day when we're collaborating.
Man,
right?
Dude.
Like, I mean, you almost can't tell. Like, we do a sleeve and it's like, where's Josh start and Nikki, you know, that's awesome to me.
Jeez, dude. Yeah. You know, speaking of music as an analogy, I'll never forget when I was rolling with Brenner years ago, and I would say this was kind of the peak or height of realism really taking off. You know, this was maybe 12 years ago, and you had Joshua Carlton, Mike DeVries, Mike DeMasi, Nico showing up, taking awards every time at Hell City for portraits. Fast forward to today, portraits don't automatically win a trophy. It's almost like today the judging is going to be even harder. Like, they're so sick of portraits winning. That's why you see new school trad pieces winning. Like, the game's changed today, you know. But back then, and I was growing to be a portrait artist myself too, and Brenner is definitely someone that we can all agree found his own style, and it's unique as fuck. You know it's a Brenner piece. And he likened to realism artists and portrait artists, he likened them all to fucking cover bands.
Yeah.
Instead of being original artists, they're all just fucking cover bands. And so that planted a seed in me and made me realize, okay, well, what could make the difference between a portrait artist and a realism artist just being labeled a cover band? Even if you're a great cover band, you're still just a cover versus an original band. And the examples of that are the Josh Carltons of the world. And it's the analogy I've used before. We could set 5 of the world's best portrait artists down, give them all the exact same portrait, the same left thigh on every client, the same reference. They're all doing the exact same portrait. They're the top 5 in the world. We all know every one of their portraits are going to turn out spot on and look really damn good. But what's going to set one apart from the rest? For all of us consumers, or if we're judging, how could we say that the third one's cooler than the other four, I always think is how they leave it and the style, what they do with and around the portrait. And Joshua Carlton's king at that. What he does incorporates in it, with it, and around it, how he leaves it off, blurs left side out, softens this side, darkens this side, makes it original as fuck. So we took a song that this dude was covering, and Carlton took the same tune and fucking did the dopest remix ever. So dope that it now is considered an original vibe, you know? And I think that's a big difference between someone that's a copier and a cover band and they can execute that portrait well, or someone that can be influenced and see real taste, real style, real fucking art talent, and to steal whatever, take what they're influenced from, take that portrait idea, and then put their own spin on it and shake it up with style, design, you know, artistry. And I think that's where either you got it or you don't.
I do agree. There's a lot of talk about this just in the art world in general, where people are like, how do you measure or even find soul? Like, how do you get, you can learn all these techniques, but when it comes down to it, somebody has some sort of a soul in their work that you just have to have, I guess. It's a big topic. And I have no idea what the answer is. Like, whenever I'm teaching, I always feel bad when someone's like, how do you do this? And it's like, some of those, how do you do this, is like, I just feel it in my bones. And I wish I could just tell you some, you know, oh, you got to use this tube and this needle, because that's what they want to hear, right?
Right.
Get yourself these three, this machine, this needle, this tube, you know, this hustle butter, and you got it, right? But it's just, there's something else there. I don't know how teachable soul is. Does that make sense?
You know